I like the game that's played now. I mean, I respect the players. We had our run, and this is their time, and this is how they like to play their game. But I'm glad I played in the 80s because it was more that you could feel and hold and grab.
When I got to the league, I called all my friends back up. I said, all that trash that you were talking, you need to squash all that. This man is great. Whatever you were saying, for a man who can't jump, he's demolishing everybody. He's doing it on everybody. He's doing it on the best defensive players in the league.
As long as you understand that this is always going to be what you're remembered for, basketball and your love for basketball should always be pure.
The kids today, they're being given things that they haven't earned. And I don't want to seem like an old school, traditional, bitter type of guy. You ask me, and I'm telling you that I think the game is being cheated because of the success that's being given prior to them earning it. Simple as that.
Didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it. They say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill, you know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God, but now everybody has skill.
And I had a conversation this summer with a high executive at Minnesota, and he was talking about Anthony Edwards.
Yep, Ant-Man.
I heard during the course of the year that, they were double teaming me. He didn't know how to deal with the double team. Well, that's the highest respect that you can ever get if a team feels like they got to double team you. Now, how do you figure out a way to break that double team? Move without the ball. Move into the post. Get in scoring position so that the double team, you can act before the double. All those simple, it's hard to be hungry when you have. Simple as that. I mean, if you don't have, you are willing to do whatever you have. My love of the game within my contract, that if I was driving with you down the street and I see a basketball game on the side of the road, I can go play in that basketball game. And if I get hurt, my contract is still guaranteed. I love the game so much that I would never let someone take the opportunity for me to play the game away from me. As opposed to now where you don't have it, players probably don't play. Now they get individual attention with their trainer.
Oh, me young fella, let me tell you something. I can shoot a jumper anywhere I want to. You supposed to be a great defender, right? I'm gonna make sure I tell you where I'm gonna shoot the ball at. So he went right to that corner, and I'm up on him, I'm under him, and he said, young fella, what did I tell you I was gonna do? And he turned around, raised up, and it was all drones. And I said, shit, I ain't gonna mess with you no more. He was the coldest dude I ever seen.
Well, my confidence came from me shooting basketball by myself for hours upon hours. I mean, I didn't pick up a ball on a Saturday and decide I was going to score 40 a game. I mean, that preparation came way before that. So I put my time in. So I knew I put more time in than anybody else. And I had skills that other people didn't have. So
if I'm being honest, bro, I don't think anybody in this generation could have played like 20 years ago. If I'm being 100, and this is to everybody in our league, Tatum, all y'all. Let me tell y'all something, bro. 20 years ago, bro, you couldn't get to a triple step back. Then if you shot that shit, it had to go in. You know why? Because we had efficiency lap back in the day, my dude, and it was so fucking hard. It was too fit.
Anthony Edwards set off a firestorm the moment he claimed Larry Bird had no skill, dismissing not just a legend but an entire generation of players he admitted he never even studied. His comments spread like wildfire, pulling in former players, old school fans, and every debate show on TV. But behind the noise, something far more interesting was happening. Michael Jordan had already been keeping tabs on Edwards, digging for insight inside the Minnesota organization to figure out who this young star really was. And instead of discovering a future unstoppable force, Jordan reportedly found a talented player still wrestling with one of basketball's oldest and most fundamental challenges, recognizing and responding to double teams. Anthony Edwards' recent comments sparked another shockwave when he dismissed an entire era of legends he admitted he never truly studied, while Michael Jordan quietly watched the situation unfold without tweets, rants, or attention-seeking reactions. Instead, Jordan waited and later responded with a calm, icy clarity that highlighted the gap between Edwards' confidence and the reality of the game's history. Edwards had brushed aside icons like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Isaiah Thomas in a single podcast clip, despite never reaching the NBA Finals himself, overlooking players who built the league with toughness, sacrifice, and an obsession with winning. Behind the scenes, Jordan had already asked people inside Minnesota about Edwards' weaknesses, and what he heard lined up with what he suspected. The same young star questioning past greats was still struggling with one of basketball's most basic challenges, handling double-team pressure. It was a pointed reminder that while Edwards questioned the legends, players like Jordan and Bird spent their careers solving the very defensive problems. His still learning to navigate Michael Jordan's response carried a message far sharper than anything Anthony Edwards expected, quietly suggesting that while Edwards has the talent, he's still learning the deeper language of the game. And then came the single word that made his entire critique flip back on him. Suddenly, the optics were reversed, a rising star questioning legends like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Isaiah Thomas is still struggling with the same defensive reads those all-time greats mastered decades ago. But Jordan, never one to chase headlines, wasn't aiming at Edwards alone. He shifted the conversation to something much bigger, suggesting the modern game is being cheated when players receive endorsements, national spotlight, and superstar treatment long before winning titles or mastering fundamentals. In Jordan's view, the rewards are arriving before the grind, and once success shows up early, the hunger can fade without anyone noticing, a warning that goes far beyond Anthony Edwards and speaks to a league-wide issue he believes is shaping the next generation and Michael Jordan's era. Greatness wasn't handed out early. It was earned slowly, possession by possession, playoff by playoff, until he built a legacy so relentless that the entire league eventually bent to his will, stacked with 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs, and years of controlling opponents mentally as much as physically. By contrast, Anthony Edwards has risen through viral clips, social media buzz, and rapid-fire hype cycles, and Jordan's message is unmistakable. Those two paths are nowhere near the same. Then came the detail that stunned fans. Jordan once had contract language guaranteeing he could play pickup basketball anywhere in the world, and even if he wrecked his knee doing it, he still wanted every dollar paid, a reminder that basketball wasn't his job but his obsession. And now, in that context, a young star still learning how to handle aggressive traps is calling past legends unskilled, which explains why so many people pushed back instantly. Because if anyone truly wants to understand what skill looked like in the old era, they only have to study Larry Bird, a player whose game wasn't just polished, it was flat-out frightening. Defenders from that era all repeat the same unbelievable stories about Larry Bird, tales that sound made up until you realize they actually happened. He would tell opponents the exact move he was about to make, point to the spot on the floor where he planned to shoot, announce it out loud, and then drain the shot in their faces while they stood there powerless. That's why Michael Jordan reacted so sharply, because while Anthony Edwards is still learning how to read pressure defenses, the same man he dismissed as unskilled was outthinking and outplaying elite defenders before the play even began. This wasn't a small difference in talent, it was a completely different universe of basketball intelligence. With the clock ticking down and the game on the line, Bird would warn defenders where the final shot was coming from, hit it anyway, and sometimes joke afterward that he wished he timed it better with the buzzer. As wild as it sounds, players from that generation insist it happened over and over against the very best competition the league had to offer. Opponents spent years repeating stories about Larry Bird, and people assumed they were exaggerating until they saw the absurdity firsthand, because Bird's dominance came not from marketing or social media buzz but from countless hours in empty gyms fueled by repetition, discipline, and obsession, exactly the type of player Anthony Edwards casually dismissed in a podcast. And Michael Jordan wasn't the only legend who pushed back. Kevin Garnett jumped into the debate too, challenging the modern mindset and echoing Jordan's message that many of today's stars wouldn't have survived the physicality, pressure, and psychological warfare of that era. What most fans overlook is that Jordan wasn't defending Bird simply out of respect for a fellow great. This runs far deeper, because Michael Jordan treats basketball like an identity, not a career. And older players know that kind of devotion makes you fiercely protective of the game itself. So when a young player still learning foundational reads dismisses the greatest competitors in history as lacking skill, it naturally hits a nerve. Especially considering Jordan once spoke with genuine reverence when Bird retired, while Edwards brushed him off like he didn't matter at all. Even Michael Jordan, widely regarded as the fiercest competitor the sport has ever seen, once admitted he wanted Larry Bird out of the league because Bird was so dangerous, calculated, and impossible to stop. Yet decades later, a young player still mastering key fundamentals is casually labeling that same legend as unskilled, a contrast that speaks for itself. Bird didn't lash out or create drama in response. He handled the situation with a calm professionalism Anthony Edwards didn't match. Then Magic Johnson jumped in and shifted the entire tone of the debate with a single measured response. And that's exactly why Jordan keeps speaking up. It isn't bitterness or envy, but a defense of the standard that built the NBA's foundation. Bird spent countless nights alone in empty gyms sharpening his craft until unbelievable shots became automatic, and Jordan even wrote his love for the game into his own contract so no rule could separate him from basketball. Their greatness wasn't built on talent alone, but on sacrifice, discipline, and an obsession younger fans rarely see today. These weren't just stars, they were athletes who gave up comfort, time, and relationships to reach a level of excellence they refused to surrender to anyone. Anthony Edwards clearly has superstar-level ability, but when respect for the pioneers fades, all the hype and highlights start to feel shallow fast. And Jordan made sure that point landed with force. At this stage, the discussion is no longer about a single podcast comment, it's about what greatness truly means. Jordan didn't just defeat opponents, he broke them down piece by piece, treating every possession like a puzzle and every matchup like a personal test, studying habits, angles, timing, and even the smallest defensive mistake until it became a weakness he could exploit. That level of dominance wasn't built on talent alone, but on an obsessive commitment most players never reach. So when he hears a young star casually dismiss an entire era, it hits differently, because he remembers exactly how unforgiving that era was, hand-checking on every drive, punishing fouls at the rim, no superstar whistles to bail you out, and zero shortcuts to confidence. You earned every inch of space, every point, and every playoff moment through physical and mental battles. And that's the part many believe is slipping away in today's game. As the league grows bigger, richer, louder, and more marketable than ever, the pain, discipline, and toughness that once built the league don't always get the same level of respect today, and that's where the tension in this debate really comes from. In the old NBA, talking like a superstar meant you had to back it up instantly. No grace period, no years of protection, just veterans testing you every night, pushing you physically, probing you mentally, and exposing you if your confidence didn't match your game. That's why Jordan's reaction feels so sharp and uncompromising. In his era, respect wasn't optional, and you didn't speak on all-time legends unless you truly understood the battles they fought and the sacrifices that shaped their dominance. The mentality of that generation wasn't built on hope, it was built on certainty, preparation, and a refusal to let failure even exist in their vocabulary. When pressure rose, they sharpened, not cracked. And when Jordan looks at parts of today's game, highlight culture, viral moments, giant endorsement deals, branding, and non-stop attention, he doesn't always see that same ruthless obsession to overcome every obstacle in front of you. To be clear, none of this is about tearing Anthony Edwards down. He's one of the most explosive and exciting young stars in basketball. The point is the gap between hype and the old-school grind has never been more obvious, and that's exactly why Jordan's message hits so hard. The league absolutely benefits from big personalities like Anthony Edwards, but confidence without perspective can backfire quickly, especially when you speak on legends who shape the meaning of greatness for entire generations. In today's world, once a comment hits the internet, it never fades. Fans see it, former players see it, iconic names see it, and suddenly the narrative shifts from what you could be to what you think you already are. Jordan understands that reality better than almost anyone, because every quote, performance, mistake, and triumph becomes part of your legacy whether you like it or not. Older players aren't asking young stars to bow down. They are asking for recognition of the grind that built the league, the injuries they fought through, the pressure they carried, and the expectations they delivered on without excuses. Without their foundation, there's no platform for today's stars at all. That's the core issue here. Not old school versus new school, but earned respect versus instant status. Jordan entered the league with nothing handed to him and faced challenges, criticism, and doubt from day one. But he answered every question on the court, season after season, until there was simply no debate left.